The intern Ryan brought with him was an obsessive fan with absolutely no sense of boundaries. I had just gone through a fibroid removal when she took a photo of my semi-conscious, exposed body on the operating table and posted it on her Snapchat story. In the photo, I was still under anesthesia, my upper body completely uncovered. Her caption read, "Surgerical internship checklist completed. Also, Dr. Ryan Vance looks drop-dead gorgeous when he's operating." When I confronted her, trembling with rage, Ryan shielded her behind his back. It was her first time in the OR. She was just excited, he said coldly. Besides, your face was covered by the sterile drapes. Who would even recognize you? Why are you being so petty? But soon after, that photo was leaked to our hospital's WhatsApp groups, local community forums, and Instagram. The vile, humiliating comments from colleagues and strangers drowned me. I eventually suffered a mental breakdown and jumped from the hospital's rooftop. At my funeral, Ryan told everyone that I had severe clinical depression and that my death had nothing to do with anyone else. Then, he turned around, married the intern, and inherited the hospital shares my parents had left me. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the surgery. Summer Brooks was leaning against Ryan, smiling playfully. "Don't worry, Chloe," she chirped. "I'll make sure your stitches look super pretty later." I smiled faintly. "I'm sorry. An unlicensed intern is not qualified to be in my operating room. Notify the chief. I want a new lead surgeon." The prep area fell dead silent. The hand Ryan had placed on my shoulder stiffened. His fingers tightened slightly through my hospital gown. Quickly masking his annoyance, he leaned down and touched my forehead. "Chloe, stop throwing a tantrum. Summer is my intern. Don't make things difficult for her. I'm the lead surgeon. What is there to worry about?" Summer stood behind him. Her white coat was messily thrown on, and her intern badge dangled loosely from her chest. She blinked, her lips curving into a pout. "Chloe, do you dislike me? I know I'm just an intern, but I worked so hard to get this observation opportunity. I promise I won't touch anything. I'll just watch from the side." She held up 2 fingers, making a tiny gap, her voice dripping with fake innocence. Just a tiny peek. Looking at the swaying badge on her chest, my stomach churned with intense disgust. In my past life, I was fooled by this exact "just watching to learn" excuse. Summer had stood in the corner, her phone peeking out of her pocket, capturing the most humiliating moment of my life. And my husband had personally shielded her from any consequences. I gripped the bedsheets, staring dead into Ryan's eyes. "No," I said, "she is not allowed in my OR." Summer bit her lower lip, and tears instantly welled up in her eyes. "Dr. Vance, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have been so eager to learn." She took half a step back, her fingers gently tugging at Ryan's sleeve. "Since Chloe doesn't want me here, I'll leave right now." Ryan looked down at her, then grabbed my hand. "Chloe, Summer was assigned to me by the residency program. She's not my personal guest. She's just here to learn. Why do you have to be so harsh?" "Harsh?" I pulled my hand back. "Today, not only is she banned from entering." Ryan froze. I pushed myself up, sitting straight, and spoke word by word. "I am also demanding a change of lead surgeon." "Ryan, you are banned from my operating room as well." A collective gasp echoed through the hallway. The mask of the gentle husband finally slipped off Ryan's face. "Chloe Carter, do you even hear yourself? You are about to go into major surgery. Changing surgeons last minute? Are you trying to kill yourself?" A sharp wave of pain shot through my abdomen, but my voice remained steady. "I know exactly what I'm doing. If you don't swap the surgeon, I'm not doing the surgery." Ryan stared at me for a few seconds, then slammed his clipboard onto the nightstand. "Are you out of your mind? You've been acting weird since this morning. Over a harmless joke from Summer, you're demanding a new surgeon." Summer quickly tugged at his sleeve. "Ryan, please don't fight with Chloe because of me. It's my fault. I shouldn't have been so excited. I shouldn't have mentioned the stitches. Chloe is about to go into surgery, and I made her upset. I'm so stupid." As she spoke, tears rolled down her cheeks. 2 nearby nurses exchanged looks. "Isn't she overreacting? The intern didn't mean any harm." Ryan overheard them, and his face grew even darker. He pointed at me, holding back his fury. "Look at this. Everyone is working their butt off for you, and you're here throwing a childish fit. What more do you want?" "What do I want?" I forced a cold smile through the pain. "I think I made myself clear. Get the director here. Change my surgeon. You are being absolutely ridiculous." Ryan's temple throbbed. Summer stood aside, sobbing softly. "Chloe, please don't be like this. Dr. Vance stayed up all night reviewing your scans for this surgery. He cares about you so much. It hurts him when you say things like that." I ignored her completely and turned to the nurse. "Nurse, call Director Harrison, please." The nurse looked at Ryan, hesitant. Ryan glanced at the whispering staff around us, took a deep breath to calm himself, and sat back down on the edge of my bed. He placed his palm over the back of my hand, patting it gently. A C-section with fibroid removal is a major procedure. I understand you're anxious and sensitive right now. But I am your husband, and I'm the doctor who knows your body best. Demanding a new surgeon now is risking your life over a petty tantrum. Summer sniffed, crossing her arms. Chloe, don't let me ruin your surgery. I always have good intentions but end up messing things up. I'll leave now. Seriously. She said she would leave, but her feet didn't move an inch. Seeing her cry so hard, a nurse nearby handed her a tissue. Summer took it and squeezed out a grateful smile. Thank you, sweetie. I'm okay. Sweat was dripping down my forehead from the pain. I sat up. Get out. Summer flinched, crying even harder. Chloe, I really didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to take the chance to learn. If trying to learn is a crime, then I guess I'll never try again. The onlookers in the hallway began to murmur. The intern seems so sweet and pitiful. Dr. Vance's wife has such a nasty attitude. She's literally about to give birth and she's still causing a scene. Ryan finally snapped. He stood up, shielding Summer completely. Enough. Chloe, you can boss people around at your family foundation, but this is a hospital, not your boardroom. I know how to run an or better than you do. The pressure in my abdomen was building, and the sheer anxiety made it hard to breathe. But I could not let them in. I'm not signing the consent form. Ryan's expression darkened. Summer immediately grabbed his sleeve. Ryan, don't be mad at Chloe. She must love you so much that she can't stand another woman being near you in the OR. I don't blame her at all. Then, she quickly covered her mouth as if she had said too much. The whispers in the hallway grew louder. Oh, so she's just jealous. Being jealous at a time like this? She's playing with her own life. Ryan closed his eyes, and when he opened them, there was nothing but cold disappointment. She is clearly showing signs of severe prenatal anxiety. Her emotional state is compromising the safety of the procedure. He turned to the nurse. Prepare a sedative. The nurse hesitated. Dr. Vance, are you sure? Ryan looked at me, his voice softening. Chloe, don't worry. It's just to help you relax. He leaned down, his warm breath brushing my ear. You are disrupting medical order right now. As your husband and your primary physician, I have the legal right to make the safest decision for you. I shivered with rage. I am perfectly conscious. I do not consent to any sedation. Ryan gritted his teeth. Administer it. I will take full responsibility. The nurse rolled the tray over, the syringe gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I tried to pull back, but my uterus contracted violently, and the pain almost made me slide off the bed. Summer quickly stepped forward and held my hands down. Chloe, stop struggling. You're about to have surgery. Let me help you get in position. She leaned in close to my ear, whispering, keep screaming. Everyone already thinks you're a lunatic. Who do you think will believe you? A chill ran down my spine. When Summer looked back up at Ryan, her face was filled with feigned terror. Ryan, Chloe is pushing me so hard. I'm scared. Ryan pulled her back and pinned my shoulders down himself. Stay still. The moment the needle touched my skin, I used every ounce of my remaining strength to scream. Director Harrison. I need the director. What the hell is going on here? Urgent footsteps hurried toward the door. Director Harrison pushed the door open, followed by the chief of obstetrics and several senior nurses. Seeing the chaotic scene in the room, his face paled. I seized the opportunity, writhing out of Ryan's grip despite the agonizing pain. Director Harrison. I demand a change of lead surgeon. Ryan Vance and Summer Brooks are not allowed anywhere near my operating room. The hallway fell dead silent. The director looked at Ryan, then at me. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Mrs. Vance. Chloe, changing surgeons last minute is extremely risky. The position of the fibroid is complicated. We need to operate immediately. He softened his tone. Dr. Vance is our most experienced surgeon in this department. You are in the safest hands with him. Our schedule is fully booked. The earliest surgeon we can swap in won't be free until the day after tomorrow. Ryan pinched the bridge of his nose, then knelt down by my bedside, taking my hand. All right, Chloe. Stop playing around. He lowered his head, his voice cracking with emotion. I shouldn't have let Summer come in. Since you don't like her, I'll have her leave immediately. But we cannot delay the surgery. Can we please just get through the delivery first, and then we can talk, okay? Summer stood nearby, pulling down her mask and sobbing. Chloe, please don't be mad at Dr. Vance. He loves you so much. He's literally on his knees. She lowered her head, fidgeting with her fingers. I was wrong to ask, but please don't play with your own body. Yeah, what an unlucky doctor to have a patient like this. Her own husband is operating on her, and she's still not satisfied. Rich wives are so hard to please. The onlookers in the hallway kept throwing judging comments at me, but only I knew that I was saving my own life. Ryan rubbed his thumb over the back of my hand. The gesture was gentle, but his eyes were ice cold. Chloe, be good. I don't want people making a joke out of us. He squeezed my hand, the pressure slowly increasing to a painful level. And I don't want anything bad to happen to you, understand? Staring at his sickeningly fake, hypocritical face, I snatched my hand back and ripped off the monitor lines. The nurses cried out, rushing forward. Mrs. Vance, you can't move. Clutching my stomach, I swung my legs over the edge of the bed. The moment my feet touched the cold floor, a sharp, tearing pain ripped through my abdomen, making my vision go white. Fine. I wheezed through gritted teeth. Then I won't do the surgery here. Discharge me. Now. Everyone's face went pale. The cold marble floor bit into the soles of my bare feet, but the searing pain in my lower abdomen was nothing compared to the ice in my veins. Discharge me. I repeated, each syllable clipped and steady. If Carter Memorial cannot provide a lead surgeon who respects basic patient autonomy, I will take my business, my delivery, and my 35% majority hospital endowment to St. Jude's. Director Harrison looked as if he had been struck by lightning. The color vanished from his fleshy face, his eyes darting frantically from my hand, which was hovering near the emergency discharge clipboard, to Ryan. Majority endowment? Summer's shrill, confused voice broke the silence. Looked at Ryan, her eyebrows knitted in a childish frown. Ryan, what is she talking about? You're the chief attending. Why is she talking like she owns the place? Ryan's face twisted into an ugly, mottled crimson. He stepped forward, trying to grab my arm to force me back onto the bed, but I pivoted, slamming the heavy rolling force stand between us like a spear. Don't touch me, Dr. Vance, I warned, my voice cutting through the corridor. Like a scalpel. You lay one finger on me without my consent and it's not medical practice, it's felony battery. And unlike my past life, every security camera in this hallway is currently recording. Chloe, you're endangering our child. Ryan hissed, his voice dropping into that familiar, venomous whisper he only used when no senior staff were looking. You think you can just waltz out of here with a 3-centimeter cervical dilation and an active fibroid vascular bleed? You'll bleed out in the ambulance. Then I'll bleed out under the care of a physician who didn't plan to let his side piece play photographer over my exposed body. I snapped. Summer gasped loudly, covering her mouth with both hands, her eyes instantly brimming with fresh, theatrical tears. Chloe, how can you say something so disgusting? I am a professional medical student. Dr. Vance is my mentor. How could you accuse us of something so sick? Shut up, Summer. A cold, dry voice cut in from the elevator bay. The crowd of nurses and residents parted instantly as an elderly woman with silver hair pulled back into a severe, immaculate bun strode down the hall. Was wearing sterile surgical scrubs under a crisp, knee-length white lab coat, with the gold caduceus pin of the National Surgical Board. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the former chief of surgery, my late mother's closest confidant and the woman Ryan had spent the last 2 years systematically pushing toward forced retirement so he could claim her department chair. Dr. Reed, Director Harrison squeaked, visibly sweating through his collar. You're supposed to be on administrative sabbatical. I was, Dr. Reed said, not sparing Harrison a single glance. Her sharp, steel gray eyes locked onto me, taking in the blood-stained hospital gown, the torn telemetry leads, and the white-knuckled grip I had on the metal stand. Until Chloe's private attorney called my home 5 minutes ago with an emergency executive directive from the Carter Foundation. She stopped directly in front of Ryan. Dr. Reed was half a head shorter than him, but the sheer weight of her authority made Ryan take an involuntary step backward. Dr. Vance, Dr. Reed said, her voice dropping into a register of icy contempt. You have been formally stripped of all clinical privileges regarding patient Chloe Carter. Hand over your badge, step away from this prep bay, and report to the Ethics and Oversight Committee on the 4th floor. Ryan's jaw clenched so hard the muscles in his cheek twitched violently. Dr. Reed, this is absurd. I am the patient's husband. Under state healthcare proxy laws. Under state healthcare proxy laws, Dr. Reed interrupted, pulling a stamped legal document from her leather portfolio and slapping it against Ryan's chest. A spouse's proxy is only active when the patient is incapacitated. Chloe is fully conscious, lucid, and has formally designated me as her sole medical power of attorney as of 8 a.m. this morning. Dr. Reed turned to the head scrub nurse. OR3 is prepped and sterilized under my name. Prep the patient for an immediate spinal block. I am taking lead. Summer lunged forward, her voice rising into an indignant screech. Wait. But Dr. Vance spent all night on this case. I'm his assigned assistant. If Dr. Reed takes over, what about my rotation credits? Dr. Reed finally turned her head, looking at Summer Brooks as if she were a roach crawling across a sterile tray. Miss Brooks, Dr. Reed said coldly, your residency coordinator will receive my Formal recommendation for your immediate expulsion from this institution by noon. Security. Escort this girl off the surgical floor. 2 burly, uniformed security guards stepped out from the stairwell, their hands resting on their utility belts. Summer's face went from tearful innocence to pure, unadulterated shock. Looked at Ryan, her lower lip trembling violently. Ryan, tell them. They can't do this to me. Ryan stood frozen, his hands clenched into useless fists at his sides. For the first time in his life, the arrogant, charming Dr. Vance realized that the golden cage he had built around me was made of glass, and I had just shattered it. From the inside out. The doors of operating room 3 sealed shut with a heavy, pneumatic hiss. The frantic noise of the hallway, Summer's whining sobs, Ryan's furious demands, and the murmurs of the gossiping staff, vanished, replaced by the rhythmic, steady beep 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 of the vitals monitor and the clean metallic scent of iodine and sterile air. Transfer on 3, Dr. Reed's calm, steady voice commanded. 1, 2, 3. Gentle hands lifted me onto the firm, narrow operating table. Unlike my past life, where Ryan had casually left my upper torso uncovered while joking with the anesthesiologist, Dr. Reed immediately pulled a warm, sterile cotton drape up to my collarbone, tucking it securely around my shoulders. The anesthesiologist, a veteran specialist named Dr. Marcus, whom Ryan had previously blacklisted for refusing to sign off on his rushed surgical records, leaned over the top of the drape. Deep breath for me, Chloe, Dr. Marcus said gently, his eyes smiling above his surgical mask. You're going to feel a small pinch in your lower back, and then that awful burning in your abdomen is going to fade into warm numbness. You and your baby are completely safe here. I closed my eyes, letting out a long, shuddering breath that felt like it had been trapped in my chest across 2 lifetimes. As the cold antiseptic swab touched my lumbar spine, followed by the dull pressure of the spinal needle, I felt the fire in my pelvis slowly dissolve into a cool, tranquil stillness. Incision time, 9:14, Dr. Reed announced clearly to the surgical recorder. Lead surgeon, Dr. Evelyn Reed. First assistant, Dr. Sarah Lynn. Proceeding with lower segment transverse C-section, followed by posterior uterine fibroid enucleation. Behind the sterile blue curtain that blocked my view of my abdomen, I heard the crisp, rhythmic click of instruments. Scalpel. Suction. Bipolar cautery. There was no chatter about weekend golf trips. No jokes about pretty stitches. No unauthorized smartphones peeking out from scrub pockets. For the first time, I was treated not as an obstacle to someone's career or a prop for someone's social media feed, but as a human being whose life mattered. 10 minutes later, the sharp, lusty cry of an infant shattered the sterile silence of the room. Wah, wah. Tears broke past my eyelashes, streaming down into my hair. Baby boy, Dr. Lynn announced with a warm chuckle, holding up a squirming, pink, beautiful child over the top of the curtain for half a second before carrying him to the radiant warmer. APGAR score, 9 at 1 minute. Vigorous clear. Lungs, weight looks to be around 7 pounds. The pediatric nurse cleaned him rapidly, swaddled him in a warm, dry flannel blanket with a tiny blue knit cap, and brought him directly to my cheek. His skin smelled of sweet amniotic fluid and clean cotton. His tiny damp forehead pressed against my cheekbone, his little fist brushing against my lips. He's perfect, Chloe, Dr. Reed said, her voice muffled behind her mask as she kept her hands buried in the surgical field. Now lie still. I'm isolating the fibroid capsule. It's extensive, but clean. We'll have you closed and in the private VIP recovery wing within 45 minutes. Thank you, Aunt Evelyn. I whispered, my voice cracked and raw. Don't thank me yet, Dr. Reed replied, her tone sharpening with absolute surgical lethality. Save your energy for the board meeting on Friday. Your mother didn't build this hospital just to let a silver-tongued leech and a narcissistic intern turn it into their private playground. While I was sleeping peacefully in the high-security VIP recovery suite on the 8th floor with 2 private security guards posted outside my door and my newborn son sleeping soundly in the nursery bassinet beside my bed, the internet was catching fire. Summer Brooks had not left the hospital quietly. Thwarted in her attempt to enter the OR, she had retreated to the 2nd floor staff lounge, locked herself in a private call booth and pulled out her iPhone. With her scrub top artfully unbuttoned at the collar, her mascara smudged down, her cheeks in streaks of mascara-stained tears, and her intern badge clutched in her trembling hand, she recorded a 2-minute video for her 250,000 TikTok followers. Hey guys. Summer choked out in the video, her voice cracking with calculated vulnerability. I honestly didn't want to make this video, but I'm just so heartbroken and humiliated. She sniffled, wiping away a single, perfect tear with the back of her sleeve. Today was supposed to be the biggest day of my medical school career. I was scheduled to observe and assist on a high-risk, life-saving surgery with my mentor, who is literally the most dedicated surgeon I have ever met. She paused, letting out a bitter, trembling sigh. But because his wife is an ultra-wealthy trust fund heiress who thinks she owns everyone and everything in this hospital, she had a massive temper tantrum. Right before going under, she accused me of being inappropriate just for being in the room, demanded that her husband be stripped of his surgery, and had security physically throw me out into the hallway. She lowered her head, her shoulders shaking with silent, pitiful sobs. I worked 80 hours a week to earn this placement. I grew up in a working-class family, and I have $200,000 in student loans. But apparently, if you're rich enough, you can destroy a young female doctor's career just because you're insecure about your own marriage. I don't know if I even have a future in medicine anymore. The caption read, "When nepotism and billionaire insecurity destroy your dreams on your first day. In the OR. Broken heart stethoscope #medstudentlife #toxic workplace #billionaire wives. #justice for interns." Within 4 hours, the video had garnered over 1.2 million views, 40,000 shares, and 8,000 comments. The comment section was an inferno of righteous public outrage. Name the hospital. Name the wife. Cancel these disgusting rich bullies. This is pure workplace harassment. That poor girl looks so traumatized. Let me guess. The husband is a handsome, successful doctor and his insecure, lazy wife can't stand seeing him work with pretty, smart women. Boycott Carter Memorial Hospital. Fire the board. Protect Summer. By 3 p.m., the local news affiliate was running a segment outside the hospital gates, showing footage of Summer sobbing into her mother's arms while holding her cardboard box of desk belongings. Inside the chief attending's office, Ryan sat behind his mahogany desk, watching the view count on Summer's video tick upward by 10,000 every minute. A slow, triumphant smirk spread across his lips. He picked up his phone and dialed his private attorney. "Arthur," Ryan said smoothly, leaning back in his leather executive chair. "Draft an emergency petition for temporary spousal guardianship and full legal custody of my newborn son, citing patient Chloe Carter's documented postpartum psychosis and erratic, dangerous behavior prior to surgery." He looked at the framed photograph of my mother on the office wall, his eyes cold and devoid of human warmth. "The public already thinks she's an unhinged, abusive tyrant," Ryan murmured. "By the time the board convenes on Friday, I won't just have her shares, I'll have the entire Carter empire in the palm of my hand." The next morning, the heavy wooden door to my private recovery room swung open. Without a knock, Ryan walked in. He was dressed in a pristine charcoal bespoke suit, a silk tie, and a fresh haircut, carrying a massive bouquet of white lilies, the exact flowers I had been severely allergic to since childhood. He set the flowers on the nightstand, walked over to the side of my bed, and looked down at me with an expression of gentle, patronizing sorrow. "Chloe," Ryan murmured, reaching out to stroke my hair. I slapped his hand away with such force that the crack echoed off the glass windows. "Don't touch me, Ryan," I said, my voice level and cold. "And take those lilies out of here before I have security throw them into the incinerator." Ryan didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled up an armchair, sat down, and crossed his legs with practiced elegance. "You're still hostile, I see," he said, shaking his head with a long theatrical sigh. "The nurses told me you barely slept last night. That's classic. Early onset postpartum mania, Chloe. You really need to stop resisting treatment." He reached into his leather briefcase, pulled out a thick stack of legal documents, and laid them neatly across my blanket. "What is this garbage?" I asked, looking down at the legal header. "An amicable settlement agreement," Ryan said smoothly. "Given yesterday's public relations catastrophe, the Carter Foundation's public image is in freefall. Summer's video has gone international. The hospital's stock dropped 14% at the opening bell, and the state medical board is receiving thousands of calls demanding an independent investigation into your abuse of power." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping into a soft, venomous purr. "Sign over your voting shares in the hospital group to me. Agree to 6 months of voluntary inpatient psychiatric observation at the Meadowbrook Wellness Retreat, and grant me temporary sole custody of the baby. In exchange, I will issue a joint public statement with Summer explaining that you were suffering from severe prenatal hormonal distress, and we will decline to pursue civil defamation charges against you." I looked at the document, then looked up into the handsome, rotting face of the man I had loved for 4 years. "And if I refuse?" I asked. Ryan's smile turned into a cold, razor-sharp sneer. "If you refuse, Chloe, I will file the guardianship petition in county court at noon. The hospital staff who witnessed your screaming fit in the prep bay yesterday, including Director Harrison, have already signed sworn affidavits confirming your mental instability." I will take your son. I will strip you of your board seat, and you will spend the rest of your miserable life locked in a padded room while I raise our child with a woman who actually knows how to appreciate a real man." I stared at him for 3 long seconds. Then slowly, I burst out laughing. It wasn't a hysterical laugh. It was a clear, ringing, genuine laugh of pure amusement that made the smirk slowly slide off Ryan's face. "What's so funny?" Ryan snapped, his brow furrowing in irritation. "I'm laughing," I said, reaching over to the nightstand and picking up my iPad. "Because you honestly believe you're the smartest person in the room." I tapped the screen, turning the display toward him. The screen showed a live feed of the hospital's primary server room. A team of 4 federal forensic investigators in dark blue jackets bearing the yellow letters OIG, Office of Inspector General, were standing over the main data racks, pulling hard drives and sealing them into static-proof evidence bags. Beside the screen was a high-resolution PDF document. Subpoena Dutses Tecum, United States District Court in Re. Dr. Ryan Vance and Summer Brooks charges: healthcare fraud, Medicare double billing, fabrication of clinical trial data, unlawful distribution of Schedule II narcotics. Ryan's pupils contracted to the size of pinpricks. The color drained from his lips so fast he looked like a corpse in a 3-piece suit. What is this?" Ryan choked out, grabbing the edge of the tablet. "This," I said, leaning forward until my face was only inches from his, "is the reason I didn't divorce you 3 months ago when I first realized you were sleeping with your intern in the on-call room." Ryan stumbled out of the chair, his back hitting the wall. You went to the feds." "I didn't just go to the feds, Ryan," I said, flipping through the files on the iPad with my thumb. "I spent the last 90 days hiring the top forensic accounting firm in the state to audit every single surgery you performed over the past 3 years." I tapped a file, opening a series of high-definition photographs and scanned operative notes. November 14th of last year. Patient Sarah Jenkins, 62 years old. You billed her insurance $45,000 for a complex laparoscopic hysterectomy performed personally by you. But the hallway security footage and the scrub nurse's private logs show you left the OR 20 minutes in to have lunch with Summer at the sushi bar across the street, leaving a first-year resident who had never held a laparoscopic trocar to finish the dissection. Ryan's chest heaved, sweat beginning to bead along his hairline. That was an emergency consultation. The resident was fully supervised. The patient suffered a severed left ureter, went into septic shock, and required 3 reconstructive surgeries. I interrupted, my voice dropping into an iron monotone. "You falsified the operative report, threatened the scrub nurse with termination if she spoke up, and settled the malpractice claim using $200,000 drawn illegally from my mother's private charitable trust." I clicked to the next slide. And then, of course, there's Miss Summer Brooks. The screen displayed Summer's official medical school transcript from the Midwestern University School of Medicine. Only across every single semester, the grades had been stamped with a massive red watermark, forgery/under review. Summer Brooks never passed the USMLE Step 1. I said, watching the horror bloom in Ryan's eyes. She failed twice. She was facing academic dismissal until you personally contacted the residency dean, claiming she was your distinguished clinical research prodigy, and arranged for her to receive a fraudulent clinical rotation voucher in exchange for $6,000 in stolen fentanyl ampoules from the hospital pharmacy. No, Ryan muttered, running both hands through his styled hair, pulling at the roots in frantic disbelief. "You can't prove that. The pharmacy logs are encrypted." "The pharmacy logs were stored on the local server," Dr. Evelyn Reed said, walking through the doorway flanked by 2 uniformed special agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. "The very server that was cloned and decrypted 3 hours ago under a federal search warrant." The lead agent, a tall woman with a badge pinned to her lapel, stepped up to Ryan, unholstering a pair of heavy steel handcuffs from her belt. "Ryan Vance?" the agent asked in a flat, emotionless voice. "Wait. Listen to me." Ryan screamed, backing toward the window holding his hands up like a cornered animal. "This is a domestic dispute. My wife is having a postpartum psychotic break. She's trying to frame me because of a TikTok video." "Dr. Vance," the agent said, stepping forward with brutal, practiced efficiency, grabbing Ryan's right wrist and twisting it behind his back with a sharp, sickening click of the cuffs. "You are under arrest for federal healthcare fraud, tampering with medical records, grand theft of controlled substances, and endangerment of a dependent patient. You have the right to remain silent." "Chloe," Ryan wailed, his sophisticated, arrogant mask shattering into ugly, snot-streaked hysteria as he was forced down onto his knees on the carpet. "Chloe, please. Think of our son. We're a family. You can't do this to me. I built this department. I looked down at the man who in my past life had stood over my cold corpse at the bottom of the hospital rooftop and told the press that I was a crazy, depressed woman whose death had nothing to do with him. You didn't build anything, Ryan, I said softly, looking dead into his wide, terrified eyes. You were just a parasite feeding on my mother's legacy. And today the host is done. The agents hauled him up by his armpits, dragging his polished leather shoes across the floor as his screaming echoed down the corridor. Chloe, you bitch. You can't prove it. Summer has the press. The public is on our side. You'll never survive this. While Ryan was being loaded into the back of an unmarked federal cruiser in the hospital's underground bay, Summer Brooks was sitting in a high-end coffee shop 3 blocks away, sipping an iced vanilla latte and setting up her ring light. Her TikTok following had jumped from 250,000 to nearly 600,000 in less than 24 hours. Dozens of national lifestyle blogs had reposted her video, and a major morning talk show had already sent a producer to book her for an exclusive live interview titled, Silenced by the Elite: How One Intern Fought a Billionaire's Wrath. Going live in 3, 2, 1. Summer whispered to herself, smoothing down her designer cardigan and forcing her eyes to look glossy and moist. The live stream connected. Within 90 seconds, over 80,000 viewers flooded the room. Summer, we love you. Stay strong. Did the hospital apologize yet? Oi, that evil wife into oblivion. Summer sniffled, looking into the lens with an expression of heartbreaking, delicate resilience. Hi everyone. She whispered, her voice trembling. Thank you all so much for the overwhelming love and support. It's been the scariest 24 hours of my life. I heard this morning that the hospital board is meeting behind closed doors right now, and they're trying to pressure my mentor, Dr. Vance, to resign just to protect his wife's reputation. Right at that second, the live comments began to glitch, scrolling past at blinding, uncontrollable speed. Wait, look at the news. Turn on CNN right now. WTF is this? Is this a joke? Summer blinked, her delicate smile freezing. Guys, what's wrong? What are you? A pinned link appeared at the top of her livestream chat, posted by the verified account of the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District. Press release. Federal indictment unsealed against Dr. Ryan Vance and unlicensed medical intern Summer Brooks for healthcare conspiracy and pharmaceutical theft. Before Summer could process the words, the screen of her secondary phone on the table lit up with an incoming call from the Dean of Student Affairs at Midwestern University. She tapped the speaker button with a trembling, manicured finger. Summer Brooks. The dean's voice roared through the speaker, amplified directly into her live microphone for 80,000 viewers to hear. Do not bother returning to campus. Your enrollment has been terminated immediately. The university has initiated formal proceedings to revoke your bachelor's degree for gross academic fraud and submitted your file to the state licensing board for permanent blacklisting. Campus police are currently clearing your locker. What? Summer gasped, her voice shrinking into a squeak. Dean Miller, wait. That was Ryan. Ryan told me he would fix my transcripts. The heavy glass door of the coffee shop swung open with a loud chime. 2 uniformed officers from the municipal police department, accompanied by 2 federal marshals, walked straight to her table. Summer Brooks? The marshal asked, displaying a laminated warrant. Summer scrambled back, knocking her iced latte off the table, the brown liquid splattering across her white canvas sneakers. No, I'm live. You can't touch me. I have hundreds of thousands of followers, she shrieked, grabbing her ring light like a shield. I'm the victim. Chloe Carter framed me. Dr. Vance is my mentor. Dr. Vance is currently in holding at the federal courthouse, Miss Brooks, the officer said calmly, stepping forward and effortlessly twisting the ring light out of her hands. The camera phone tumbled, landing face up on the floor, perfectly capturing the moment the metal handcuffs were clamped around Summer's wrists. The screen showed Summer's face contorted in raw, unvarnished, ugly panic, her fake tears replaced by hysterical screams of profanity, her mascara running in black rivers down her neck, as she was dragged out past the gaping customers of the cafe. In the live stream chat, the comments shifted in a single, devastating heartbeat. Oh my God. She wasn't even a real med student. She was stealing fentanyl and forging surgeries. Look at her face. The innocent little intern was a psychopath all along. Record this. Post this everywhere. Hashtag fake intern exposed. The view count hit 150,000 just as the officer's heavy boot accidentally stepped on the phone, crushing the screen and cutting the feed to black. On Friday morning at 10 a.m., the executive boardroom on the 12th floor of Carter Memorial Hospital was packed to capacity. Every department head, senior trustee, and major shareholder sat around the 50-foot polished mahogany table. The air was thick with nervous tension, the smell of burnt coffee, and the continuous rustling of legal briefs. At the head of the table sat Director Harrison, his forehead shining with greasy sweat, clutching a gavel that felt like it weighed 50 pounds. The emergency session of the Carter Memorial Hospital Board of Directors is now called to order, Harrison stammered, his voice wavering. Item 1 on the agenda: the federal indictment of former chief attending Ryan Vance, and the formal restructuring of the Department of Surgery. The heavy double doors at the back of the boardroom swung open. Every head turned in unison. Walking into the room, dressed in an impeccably tailored navy blue pantsuit, her dark hair swept up into an elegant chignon, was me. I was flanked by Dr. Evelyn Reed and a team of 6 senior corporate litigators from Sullivan and Cromwell. My steps were steady, graceful, and completely devoid of any trace of physical weakness. Mrs. Vance, Director Harrison squeaked, half rising from his chair. We didn't expect you to be discharged so soon. It's a mess. Carter, Director Harrison, I said, my voice smooth, commanding, and cold as winter steel as I took the empty seat at the head of the table, the seat that had belonged to my mother for 25 years. My lead attorney, a sharp-featured woman named Eleanor Vance, no relation to Ryan and 10 times more ruthless, placed a leather-bound folder in front of every board member with a series of sharp, synchronized thuds. As of 8 a.m. this morning, Eleanor announced to the room, Ms. Chloe Carter has executed the testamentary buyout clause in the Carter Family Trust by absorbing the forfeited shares previously held under the conditional marital agreement with Ryan Vance. Ms. Carter now holds 51.4% of all voting stock in the Carter Healthcare conglomerate. A collective, stunned gasp rippled through the room. Several senior directors who had previously sided with Ryan immediately straightened their ties, looking at me with expressions of profound, terrified deference. I folded my hands over the mahogany table, my gaze sweeping slowly across the room until it locked onto Director Harrison. Director Harrison, I said softly. Harrison flinched as if he had been struck with a whip. Why, yes, Ms. Carter? On Tuesday morning, I continued, my voice echoing off the glass walls with razor-sharp clarity, when I was in active labor and severe pain, you stood in the prep bay and attempted to coerce me into an unmonitored surgery under the knife of a man currently facing 25 years in federal prison. When I demanded my legal right to a new surgeon, you claimed the schedule was fully booked and attempted to facilitate an unauthorized chemical restraint. Harrison's face went from pale to a sickening shade of gray. Ms. Carter, Chloe, I was only trying to maintain institutional order. Dr. Vance was our top revenue producer. You were maintaining your private kickbacks from his fraudulent clinical trials. Dr. Evelyn Reed cut in, tossing a 20-page bank audit onto Harrison's lap, including the $400,000 routed through a Shell LLC in Delaware to pay for your daughter's private boarding school in Switzerland. Harrison slumped back into his leather chair, the gavel slipping from his limp fingers and rolling across the carpet. Director Harrison, I said, standing up and buttoning my suit jacket, your resignation is accepted, effective 30 seconds ago. You have 15 minutes to vacate your office before campus security escorts you to the federal prosecutor's vehicle waiting at the main entrance. I turned my gaze to the rest of the board. Dr. Evelyn Reed is hereby appointed as the permanent chief executive officer and chairperson of the board of Carter Memorial Hospital. Any department head who wishes to contest this decision may submit their written resignation to Dr. Reed's office by noon. Not a single person moved. Not a single person breathed loudly. The chief of obstetrics stood up, clearing his throat, and began to clap. Within 5 seconds, the entire boardroom rose to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. I didn't smile. I simply nodded, turned on my heel, and walked out into the sunlit atrium, leaving the wreckage of the old regime buried beneath the foundation of the empire my mother had built for me. 3 months later, the maximum security visitor pavilion at the Metropolitan Correctional Center was cold, smelling of floor wax, industrial bleach, and stale despair. I sat behind the reinforced glass partition wearing a simple cream cashmere coat, a diamond stud in each ear, and my hair falling in soft, healthy waves over my shoulders. On the other side of the partition, the heavy steel door buzzed and Ryan Vance was led in by 2 armed corrections officers. In 90 days, he had become completely unrecognizable. The handsome, arrogant surgeon who had spent $3,000 on custom Italian suits was gone. In his place was a hollow, sunken-eyed man in a faded orange prison jumpsuit. His dark hair was shorn to the scalp, revealing uneven patches of gray, and his once manicured hands were rough and trembling, covered in tiny nervous scabs from biting his own cuticles. He sat down heavily on the metal stool, picking up the heavy plastic telephone receiver with shaking fingers. I picked up mine. Chloe. Ryan's voice was cracked, paper-thin, and hoarse from weeks of screaming in his holding cell. You actually came. I came to deliver a few finalized documents, Ryan. I said evenly, tapping the glass partition where my lawyer had slid a certified folder through the document. Schlot. The divorce was finalized by the Superior Court yesterday afternoon. I told him, my voice devoid of anger, devoid of hatred, carrying only the vast, tranquil stillness of complete indifference. Your name has been permanently removed from our son's birth certificate. He bears the name Julian Carter. He will never know your face, he will never hear your voice, and he will never carry a single drop of your shame. Ryan's breath hitched in his chest, tears welling up in his bloodshot eyes and spilling down over his hollow cheeks. Chloe, please, he begged, pressing his forehead against the cold, greasy glass partition. I was offered a plea deal this morning. 15 years in federal prison. 15 years. I'll be 50 years old when I get out. My medical license was revoked yesterday. My bank accounts are gone. The bank foreclosed on my parents' house to pay the legal fees. He began to weep openly, his shoulders shaking with raw, pathetic agony. I made a mistake, Chloe. I was stupid. Summer seduced me, she manipulated me. Summer didn't manipulate you, Ryan, I said softly, cutting through his pathetic excuses with absolute precision. You chose her because she was small, shallow, and easy to impress. You chose her because she looked at you like a god, while I looked at you like a human being and expected you to have a conscience. I stood up, pulling my leather gloves over my fingers. And as for Summer, I added, looking down at him through the glass, she was sentenced on Tuesday. 4 years at the Danbury Federal Correctional Institution for grand theft of narcotics and forgery. I hear the other inmates don't care very much for TikTok influencers. Ryan let out a broken, guttural groan, his shackled hands clawing at the glass, as if he could tear through the barrier to reach the hem of my coat. Chloe, don't leave me here. Chloe, I loved you. I swear to God I loved you. I didn't answer. I hung up the plastic receiver, setting it back onto its metal cradle with a soft final click. I turned on my heel and walked down the concrete corridor toward the exit, the heavy iron doors sliding shut behind me one by one, sealing the ghost of my past life into the darkness where he belonged. 1 year later, the spring sun over the Carter Memorial Hospital courtyard was brilliant and warm, washing over the manicured rose gardens and the newly installed bronze statue of my mother holding a child. The hospital had undergone a complete renaissance. Under Dr. Evelyn Reed's leadership, the Carter Medical Group had established the state's first comprehensive patient advocacy and ethical oversight center, funding free surgical care for over 3,000 low-income mothers and children across the region. I walked down the sunlit stone path wearing a simple white linen sundress, holding the tiny, warm hand of my 14-month-old son, Julian. Julian had thick, dark curls, bright, laughing brown eyes, and chubby little legs that wobbled happily across the soft green grass as he chased a yellow butterfly. Mama, he squealed, tumbling onto his knees and giggling as he held up a fallen daisy for me to see. I knelt down on the grass, scooping him up into my arms, burying my face in the sweet, warm curve of his neck, listening to his pure, uninterrupted laughter ring out across the courtyard. Dr. Reed walked down the terrace steps, holding a cup of herbal tea and a leather portfolio containing the architectural blueprints for the new pediatric surgical wing. The board approved the expansion unanimously this morning, Madam Chair, Dr. Reed said with a warm, triumphant smile, sitting down on the teak bench beside us. We break ground next month. Julian reached out with his chubby fingers, playfully grabbing at the gold pen in Dr. Reed's pocket, making her laugh, a deep, joyful sound that carried across the gardens. I leaned back against the bench, looking up at the clear, boundless blue sky. I remembered the cold operating table from my past life, the flashing phone cameras, the mocking whispers in the hallways, the crushing despair of the rooftop wind before the fall. That broken girl was gone, buried deep beneath the earth of a life that no longer existed. In her place stood a mother, a leader, and a survivor who had torn down the darkness with her own bare hands. I held my son tighter against my chest, feeling the steady, powerful, unyielding rhythm of our hearts beating together in the sunlight. The air was clean. The world was bright. And I was finally, truly, untouchable.